Hi everyone, welcome to the Active Knowledge series, Transition, Orienteering the Lands of Succession. Today we're in chapter 6 and we are stepping into the land of family. So you'll see coming up on your screen now, Orienteering map, and you see family is sandwiched between goals and legacy in one sense, but it's part of that foundation. And I think one of the important things to remember as we transition, as we orienteer our way through these lands, is that when we're finished in the land, we carry it forward, but we may well have to evolve the things which we've done within that land. So for example, in the goals, we'll need to always keep an eye to the goals and make sure the goals are relevant. And we'll find that we're also going to articulate them far more clearly as we progress through the other lands. With the land of family, we did touch on that and we did step our toes into it as we're looking at the land of goals. But now for the land of family, we're going to try and build unity within the family group and to journey with the entire family through legacy, wealth, business, up to decision making. We're setting the foundations for the future generations, and I think that's a good and important way to think about it. Family is about strength. If we get this right and we get family tight and unified, and then we link it in with the growth and development of the business, we're going to have a compounding of wealth across generations and a growing family unity. If we don't do this well, we'll get fragmentation, the family will begin to break apart, but also the business will begin to collapse. And this sense of the legacy I've left is what I've built and it can be carried forward to future generations will be lost also. So family is very important. So you can see here again, as we look into the map, we have the family. It is part of the foundation. There is one principle and three dangers within the family which we have to have regard to. And of course the work we need to do in the base camp. Family can be one of the most challenging and time-consuming lands. The way I prefer to look at it though, it is something which we'll carry forward through our entire journey. And even when our succession plan is finished and is being executed, we'll continue to lean into and we'll continue to build family. Family is vital for preservation and compounding of wealth. It's vital for your legacy to be carried forward, is the wrong word, to be anchored, solidified, and then to form the foundation for future growth. Family requires transparency, clarity, consensus building, requires excellent communication. It often requires the incumbent leadership team to change the way they have communicated with everyone else, and that can be challenging. But we want to make sure family is building strength and is not weakening the future. So just at these opening comments, I just want to talk about a couple of aspects of family, just to open your mind and begin to get the space which we need to think about for family. And I'll just use the language of breadth, depth, and glue, but maybe connections is a better word, but glue gives you the sense of bringing everything together. So breadth, depth, and glue, we'll use that word. So when you think about the breadth of family, you may start with, well, it's myself, it's my spouse, it's my children. Good starting point. Often family businesses then include brothers and sisters, so you then add that into the breadth. But then you have their children, say now you have nephews and nieces. And of course, as the kids grow up, they will find partners, they will likely get married, they will have children. So now you're going into in-laws and grandchildren. As you begin to pass through one generation to another, you now have groups of cousins coming together. So the breadth is beginning to build out even further. Often when we look at family businesses, it's not a single family. They were founded and started by two partners, two families that came together. So as we think about breadth, we actually have two family groups beginning to expand and to build out. Then of course, some of the challenges which come up with family can be illness, it can be death, it can be relationship difficulties, it can be separations, divorces. So you may well have stepchildren and blended families coming in. So when you think about breadth, you need to just open your mind out, because it's not about where you are today, it's about where you're going to in the future. Succession is about building the foundations for the future. And as we think about family, we need to be thinking about how that family is growing and evolving for the future. So that's breadth. The second one I wanted to just look at is depth. I'll just give you a simple example. This is a real example. There was a business founded by mum and dad. They had 3 sons who grew and developed that business. Those 3 sons had 7 children. Those 7 children have now had 18 children. So you've got the second, the third, and the fourth generations. 3 sons who had 7 children, who have now had 18 children and have not yet stopped. What about dad and mum, that first generation? Dad's passed, mum actually is still alive. She's in her 90s, but mum is still with us. And mum is the ultimate owner of all the businesses and all the assets and all the properties and the investment portfolios, because the way they structured it, it all came up into a single head trust, and mum is controlling that head trust. Interesting. If we just put mum to one side, not disrespectfully, but mum is basically sitting there saying, you boys sort out what you need to do and run it by me, and I'll do my best to support you. But if we look at the sons, their children, and then the grandchildren or great-grandchildren coming through, there's 10 related but independent families. And there's 28 family members in there now, and they age from 2 up to their 70s. That is a wide diversity of needs. But also we're looking at the needs of the incumbent generation, the needs of those who have been growing the business, but we're also thinking about the future. Breadth, depth. Then come to glue. Glue is an interesting one, and you'll see we'll speak about this quite a lot as we go into family and also as we go into legacy, and we'll use a language of harmony in there. But when you begin to think about the breadth and the depth, and you begin to think about family, what you begin to think about is human needs. And people need certainty, but they need uncertainty or variety. I need to know I'm part of something, but I need an opportunity to grow. And you remember our language around succession is about individual growth and a sense of contribution. Family is about inclusion, it's about participation, it's about contribution, it's about feeling everything is fair and equitable and I have a role to play. This is the language which undersits harmony, unity, coming together as one. And if we were to say there's one outcome we're seeking in family, it is to bring everyone together so they have a sense of belonging, a sense of fairness and equity, a sense of mission and purpose, and why we're all here. The family charter, which we're going to break out as a separate video, will form a key part of you articulating and operationalizing how this unity is going to work. It's interesting just to look back at that research, which I referred to several times before. Those families who have journeyed through and completed succession and who reported little, few, minor levels of conflict, what did they focus on? Harmony. Little conflict, high levels of buy-in. What did they say? Harmony was the key aspect which we were focused on. So that's an introduction to family and just beginning to get your head around what family and the land of family actually involves. So what are some of the outcomes we want to achieve? Remember, our base camp, our campfire, we begin to say we can't leave the land until we have ticked off these outcomes. So what are they? Well, we want to begin to build this foundation for harmony. We want to understand what it means in our family, your family, and begin to get that foundation there. We need to develop a communication strategy for seeding, renewing, and strengthening that harmony. And that may sound a bit strange. What do you mean by communication strategy? It's a family. But you think about breadth, you think about depth, and if you think about, in many families, the people who run the business and do not necessarily connect that with the rest of the family. Well, in transition, drawing the rest of the family into it becomes important. Foundation for harmony, communication strategy, regular meetings about what is happening with the transition process and the business. We need to begin to think about who are the future leaders. We need to think about who within the family are going to have which roles and how do we provide individual growth and a sense of contribution for everyone. We want to begin to build a unified team for succession so everyone is part of this and everyone sees the journey they're on. And we want to develop a family charter. So today we're going to speak about all those, and we're going to put family charter as a separate video because I want that to be more practical and to give you actually a process for developing a family charter for your family. So hopefully you've got a sense of that journey. I know it's quite detailed in one sense, but they all link together and they all build upon each other. As I've spoken about before, for each land, as we enter a land, we look at guiding principles, we look at the dangers, and then we go into the base camp. So we'll be doing the same today. What are the guiding principles? What are the dangers we need to be aware of? And what's the work we need to do within the base camp? Guiding principles. There's only one for family to start off with. And that is harmony is a must. Harmony is a must. What do you mean by harmony? Well, harmony I could say is good working relationships, but I think it's a bit more than that when you think about family. It is good working relationships. It is a focus on a vision and a set of values which we all agree to. It's having a care and concern for each other and a willingness to contribute. And I always have this sense that harmony comes about because there is equality, there is responsibility, and there is contribution. I'll say that again. There is an equality. We all have the same levels of choices. There is responsibility. We are responsible for the decisions we make for us as individuals and our families. And there is a fair contribution. In other words, we are all leaning in and doing our part to grow. So harmony is about good working relationships, but it's much deeper than that when you think about family. It requires effective communication. It is about bringing everyone on the journey as best we can. It is about that communication. It is about, however, listening well, listening very well, actively listening, because if I actively listen, I then invite contribution. If I invite contribution, that sense of contribution is there. Harmony is never about being weak, and it's never about conceding. It is about, however, gaining acceptance and support. And if you think of harmony, we have gone through the land of goals. We have sought to establish the foundational goal and the further articulated goals for our family group, and have sought to draw everyone into that. We don't vary from those. They're going to evolve, but they're pretty much they're set. And what we're seeking to do in harmony is to make sure everyone is behind those, support those, and are leaning into them. You'll see just popping up on the screen quickly that stakeholder diagram which we looked at before. So if you look at that, there's you, but then spouse, cousins, grandchildren, brothers and sisters, children. It is that side of the stakeholder group which we're thinking about when we talk about family. How do you achieve harmony? Well, just to tick the points off again, you need to establish a clear and transparent process for your succession which you're going to follow. What's that look like? It's the map we've been looking at. It's the lands we're going to go through. It's the goals which we've set. And we'll repeat that again in a moment. But that transparent and clear process allows everyone to know what's happening and what's next. So there is no doubt, there is no gossiping, there is no concern about are we going off somewhere else? No, we are following that path. That's number one, clear and transparent process. Two, we need to have regular meetings, and they need to be well conducted. We'll deal with that in the land of legacy when we speak about governance, but the regular meetings have got to be an active process with an agenda, with a chair, following a set course, a set timetable. Third one, we need to have our independent succession advisor there, because they are the person who can speak into what we're doing, but also is the person who can guide the process, but is the person who everyone can speak to because they are independent. It becomes quite important in achieving harmony. Lowers the barriers of doubt. We need to have established our overarching, our foundational goal and the more articulated goals, and they are set and we are following those. We need to communicate openly with everyone. No side conversations, everyone gets the same information at the same time. We need to be very clear about what equity and fairness looks like and discuss that, and we'll do that very much in the land of wealth. And we need to develop the family charter. And as you'll see in the breakout video on family charter, it is quite detailed, but it addresses all the questions which many of the family members will have as to how things are going to work in the future. Harmony is not necessarily easy to achieve, but it is possible and it is vital. So principle one, harmony is a must. Land of family is about building that harmony. If I had to pick one thing, it's about building that harmony, and everything we do is about building that harmony. What about dangers? You'll see coming up on your screen our orienteering map again, and you'll see highlighted are 3 dangers. It is the only land which has, yes, testing my memory here, oh, except for legacy, it has 3 dangers in it. Darkness, glacier, and bottomless pit. Darkness, glacier, and bottomless pit. So let's look at these 3 dangers and just see what they represent. I'll just remind you, it was chapter 4. We looked at all these dangers in greater detail, so you can always jump back to that. And I'll just touch on them here briefly. Darkness is a path to nowhere. You would have seen darkness is at the entrance to the land of family. The traveller has failed to act quickly enough and has been left behind while everyone else has begun their journey to the summit. The danger represented by darkness is really just inaction. We haven't commenced the succession journey early enough. Everyone else has moved forward, we're still sitting there. And there's many reasons why this may occur, but we're sitting there, but the race has started. And I'll just make a couple of comments. Succession's not optional. Sooner or later, we're going to have to release control, ownership of the business which we've built. Second point, we're better off actively planning and managing the timing of that process and how we're going to do it rather than just allowing it to wash over the top of us. We just need to keep in the back of our mind that succession is really a competitive playing field. It's not just us, it's us within the market and the environment in which we're working as we seek to build the foundations for the future. For family, for the business, for all that stakeholder group, in fact. Why do I say it's competitive? Well, lots of reasons. We may have had in the back of our mind a CEO, someone who I think would be ideal to step into the role which I've been running in my business. But I wasn't quite ready. Well, that CEO's gone off and taken another position. He's no longer available or necessarily interested. My children, who I thought maybe or may not be interested in coming into the business and taking over, I was never really sure whether they were competent or not. Well, they've given up on it. They've all gone off and done something else, and now there is no opportunity there for them to join in and continue. I was thinking of selling the business, but the company which I knew would be perfect to come and buy us, they've just brought something else. No capital left, no opportunity, no interest. And the markets seem to have moved against us a bit. And the profits we used to make, we're not making anymore, and the value of the business is diminishing. So just keep these and there's many others in the back of your mind, maybe in the front of your mind, because first mover advantage, I think when it comes to succession, can be permanent. I think it is real, and I think it's permanent. So the first danger, darkness, a path to nowhere, is we've just left it too long and we've been left behind. That's number one. Second danger in the land of family is just described as glacier, icy relationships. And you can remember we're sitting right in the center of family. Family members are not communicating with each other and are not participating in the succession journey. There's no harmony, there's no energy, there's no momentum. Transition, whatever you intend to do, sell the business, break parts off and off, split it up between family members, keep it going, whatever the option, you need that next generation to come with you on that journey and to support it. You need to engage and connect with them in a way which you may not have done in the past. Talking about the future of the business, the future of the family, the future of the wealth, and how that's going to work. It does require good relationships with you and all the family members, but between all the family members. Families can sometimes just become distant, they can grow apart as they each grow up their own individual families. You need to reconnect and you need to build good, excellent communications and a unity between them. You cannot allow icy relationships to exist, and you'll see one of the things which we talk about in the steps in the base camp, where are the fractures and how do we fix them? It's the second danger in the land of family. Third one, I just described as the bottomless pit. The separation between family and business is weak. Governance structures have not been established. There is a danger of the business and the family falling into the bottomless pit. And you may recall, and I'll just kick up on the screen again just quickly that map, the bottomless pit is sitting at the intersection of family, business, wealth. It touches goals and it touches legacy. It's like a hole in the middle of the whole journey of transition. You don't want to fall in the bottomless pit. So what is a bottomless pit? The bottomless pit basically comes where a family business has grown, it's become quite significant. You now have external people, management team involved in it, but the breadth of the family and the depth of the family has become quite significant. But what we're doing as we come together is we're throwing all of that together. The business of family and the business of the business are intermingled between the two. There is no separation. And because there's no separation, neither can grow, neither can separate themselves, neither can journey forward. And I have sat in family meetings, which are management team meetings. We've had 30 odd people sitting there. 3 or 4 or 5 are the management team. The rest are cousins and extensions, all who are talking about where the business is going to. It's not workable. This is the bottomless pit which you can fall into. Sometime or another, if you don't cause that separation through a good governance process to be created, the unity and strength of the family will diminish and the capital value of the business will fall down the hole. Easiest way for me to say it. There becomes a point in which family matters should no longer be intertwined in the management of the business. The family are the shareholders. Sitting here is the business. They are a shareholder group. The business needs to grow and develop by itself, and the family needs to have regard to family needs. Often the succession process, and you'll see this teasing out in the development of family charter, is the catalyst for the creation of the right governance structure for your family group and your business to form the foundations to go forward. So the bottomless pit is just where we don't get the separation between family and business, and they both get dragged down. So they're the dangers. We've spoken about the principles. Let's now begin to step into the base camp, what I like to call the campfire. Just begin to talk about, so what are we doing in this land of family? Family can build wealth from one generation to another, or they can very quickly destroy that. And I think we all know examples of families destroying wealth. Your approach, your individual approach to this transition journey, to the development of your succession plan, is probably the most important, influential, and determining factor as to whether your wealth, your legacy will continue to grow in future generations or disappear. One of the, I think, if I express it this way, one of the most dangerous assumptions I've seen is highly experienced, very good business people saying, don't need to worry about the succession, it'll all be taken care of, the family will be fine. No, the family won't be fine. You need to take them from being family into a unified group who are growing and building a business and at the same time are strengthening the connections in the family for the sake of the future generations. It becomes very important. This is what we're doing in the land of family. We're building this unity, this strength. So what are the things we're going to touch on? Well, in this video, which I see as the overview, the introduction into family, I'm going to speak about balance and focus. I just want to touch on this need for individual growth and a sense of contribution. I will just open the door to what I call fractures in family relationships. I want to talk about the importance of your spouse. I want to talk about how businesses can form the glue which holds everything together. I would like to talk about leadership and the type of leaders you need to appoint. And I will touch on the role of family charter. So that's what we're going to cover today. But again, just that reminder, the actual development of family charter is a breakout video which gives you the process and all the questions you need to ask. So let's begin to go and look at each one of these 7 points I just want to touch on in today's video. Balance and focus is key. So this is number 1. Balance and focus is key. What do I mean by that? It means as you're going through this succession process, this journey, you have established your goals. You understand what they are, that foundational goal, and also the articulated goals. What you need to do is to anchor yourself in those and not be jumping backwards and forwards. How do I satisfy this person? What do I do over here? What do I do with this? This sense of keeping a focus on the goals you've set and keeping a balanced view of that, and balancing needs becomes quite important. You must seek to achieve a balance across the various family and business needs, and jumping backwards and forwards between competing demands will never achieve this. What you must do is set a central focus, summit, that you're moving everyone towards. So in your family and the family unity, you're bringing everyone around this point and you're seeking to move everyone forward. What's that look like? What do you mean by this central point? Land of goals. Two aspects. There's the cornerstone goal. You may not recall, but the cornerstone goal which we set for the transition, the succession process. What is it? The compounding of wealth from generation to generation while ensuring family unity, individual growth, and a sense of contribution. Our process is about enabling this. The compounding of wealth from generation to generation while ensuring family unity, individual growth, and a sense of contribution. And if this is not registering with you, jump back into the earlier videos, probably chapter 1, and begin to get this very clear. This is what we are here for. Family. This is what we're seeking to do through this process. That's your cornerstone goal. And again, hopefully you recall that what you do from that cornerstone goal is you now step out and you create a set of tailored goals. So for my family, these are the things we need to focus on, and these are the goals we're going to seek to achieve as we journey through towards that decision, that summit point. And again, in the earlier chapters, we went through and I gave you examples of what those goals actually look like. So you have a sense of how you can articulate those. But I think there's a third aspect in this, just bringing everyone into this central view, this central focus. And that is, here's my cornerstone goal, here's my more articulated goals. Let me just turn and stand in this person's shoes, look at those goals and see what they see. You need to look at the outcomes which are sought to be achieved through family eyes, but through individual family members' eyes. It helps you to, in one sense, manage their expectations, but to make sure they feel connected, that they feel a sense of contribution and their individual growth is there. Your independent succession advisor and the process of developing a family charter is an excellent way to do this. And you'll see this in the breakout video. Your independent succession advisor is the one who can sit with each family, each individual family member and say, so what are you thinking? What do you feel about this? How do these goals work for you? And because they're independent, because they come to the table with no preset agenda or baggage, they will hear and they will actively listen, and then they can bring that back to the table and we can see how we bring that family member on the journey. So balance and focus. You've set your goals, stick to them. And bringing the family on board is vital in doing that. Family unity. In strategy, I talk about direction, focus, and alignment. The goals have set the direction. You're now bringing basically the family into focus on those goals and land of family, and through the other areas, we'll then get that alignment of everything we're doing with that. That's number one. Each one of these steps out from each other, and just getting my head in the space here. But as we then begin to step from balance and focus, we then go on to the second part of family, individual growth and a sense of contribution. So I'm now stepping from the whole into that individual person's perspective. In a leadership role, I need to make sure people are connected with what we're seeking to achieve. I do this by honest and open engagement. I seek to build consensus. I seek to build a shared common view. I seek to make sure I can find and create a compelling reason why each individual family member should stay connected and go forward. I think there's two parts to this, foundational and operational. I'll come to that in a second. But this sense of connecting with each individual and seeing how they're plugged in becomes quite important. I have my overarching goals, but I need to make sure, for the sake of unity, that each individual family member understands and is committed to them. So let me just talk about what that may look like. I call them foundation operational matters. I don't know if that's a good language, but you'll see as I go forward. So individual growth, a sense of contribution, I have the whole. How do I draw an individual into that? What's the vision and values? What have I set as the vision and values for the family, for the transition process, for the compounding of wealth? What's the importance of the business? What's the importance of continuity? What's the importance of hard work? Where has the family come from? Why should you be connected into that? And why should you build that for the future? It's vision and values. Stepping out of that, I think this question of the role of wealth becomes quite important. How will it be managed? What contribution of family members are expected to make? What good are we expected to do in the community? Remember, I just go back to that earlier comment. Unity requires equity, responsibility, and contribution. So it's not a matter of how much wealth is there and how much I can take. No. It's for what purpose is the wealth for future generations, and what do you need to do to lean in to build that? This role of wealth becomes important. Stepping out of that, lifestyle. What lifestyle is sought for the present and future generations? What are the fractures which exist which I may need to repair? And what is going to keep us all together? So they're foundational. And you can see I'm talking again about unity, but I'm saying, how do I get everyone together? How am I setting this forward? Then you step out into a little bit more detail. And I call these operational matters. And all of this gets well articulated in the development of your family charter. So what are operational matters? Well, who should be the leadership? What roles do they have? We'll come to this in a minute. Against what benchmark is leadership measured? What rights do family members have to have a job? What income can they expect? Can I buy and sell equity in the businesses? So you can see you're moving into a slightly more detailed aspect when we talk about operational. But I think this sense of individual growth and sense of contribution, there's two parts to it. Family and business, mutual obligation. Mutual obligation. Freedom of choice, responsibility, contribution. It's the language we've got to get in there. Third area, fractures in family relationships. If the family has been around for a while, you've got a bit of breadth, you've got a bit of depth, you can pretty much be assured there's going to be some fractures in some relationships somewhere. Someone is not happy with someone else. You can't always solve these, but you want to be conscious of them. You want to see how well you can address them. You want to see how well you can build that balance and focus, that individual growth, that sense of contribution to repair them. So they stay something in the past which progressively gets healed. You don't want to ignore the fractures and just let them sitting there, because sometime in the future they will burst up and undermined. Give you lots of examples we're not going to. You know your family and you can consider where are the fractures and how well they can be remedied. You need to do this and bring them to the table, and your independent succession advisor should have some awareness of these, so as they move their way around the family, they recognise what may be causing a separation and seek to also heal it. The fourth aspect of family and this family journey through succession, the spouse. Often spouses, and this is more of a traditional view of family, I believe, but that's the generation which is now going through transition. Sometimes spouses are ignored in the succession process, and it's not deliberate. It is just almost like a learned habit. I work at the business, I manage the business, you work with the family, you manage the family. It's very traditional roles as such. Sometimes it's reversed, where you have the matriarch is running the business and the patriarch is looking after the family. That is not that uncommon in many large family businesses. But you have this separation of roles, I think is a good way to express it. Make sure you bring your partner into the conversation. They are actively involved. It's not just a conversation between you and children. It's a conversation between you, your partner, and children. Why? A few reasons. One, typically they are a director and typically they are an owner. So ultimately you're going to need them to sign off on whatever you do. And I have seen circumstances where spouses have been excluded until the very end, and they have said, no way will I sign any of these documents because I was never included, which I think is fair enough. But I think there's far more important reasons. That's a very good reason, but there's probably far more important reasons why you get ahead of this. They're a key stakeholder. The contribution they can make is invaluable. Why? They can underpin and uplift harmony. They can bring clarity around ownership and what people are seeking. They can make sure there's a level of fairness across the family. They hear different conversations to what someone running the business may hear, and bringing that to the table becomes vital. The role of your spouse, critical. Make sure they're on the table with you from the very beginning and are actively involved. Next point I just want to touch on, number 5, I think it is glue. The glue that holds the family together. There is a trend which I noticed as we're doing our succession research, and it varies from country to country. Some countries are more strong than others, but also generational. When was the business formed, and have you gone through a transition process? And the trend which I'm noting is those which are in their first generation. The business has been founded by the current family group and they're going forward. And the trend is simply to sell it off. It's to turn around and say, oh, I don't know if my kids are interested. I don't know if they're up to it. I think I'll sell the whole thing off and I don't have to worry about that. And then, whatever that investment portfolio is, that can just, go to them. I personally believe that is a bad decision. Taking a pile of cash, in whichever way it's reflected, property, shares, investment portfolios, and passing it over to a generation has no goodness associated with it, is maybe a good word. If you think of your business, you built your business through hard work and effort. You took risks. When you started your business, you were not necessarily qualified to build it where it's got to today. But you did that over a number of years through hard work and through experience. Cash does not carry with it the same value as a business that employs people, meets the needs of a community, and provides a variety of career opportunities. There is a goodness and there is a unity which can bind the family together and allow them to grow as a family in future generations. If family is important to you in any way, then seeking to find ways to continue that business activity forward is vital. It provides a meaningful life for family members. It provides them with a history, an anchor, and something they can build upon and grow. And this is why you see family businesses continuing over generations and continuing to grow. Just as a side point, it doesn't mean it's the same business. It means the entrepreneurial spirit and the business skills are transitioned into another generation and continue to grow. Businesses don't necessarily last forever, certainly if they just stay the same. They are continuously evolving and looking for opportunities and growing. So because your children are not necessarily able to do what you did, does not mean business does not continue as the core of the wealth engine in your family. So just think about business as the glue that holds the family together. It's the number 5 of the tasks in the base camper family. Number 6, leadership. 3 words: character, competency, and compatibility. Character, competency, and compatibility. I play with my percentages, but I would say character 60%, competency 30%, compatibility 10%. Why do I do it that way? When in most cases leaders are appointed based upon experience and qualifications, because if the character is wrong, they will destroy the business. If the character is wrong, they will destroy the family. Get character first right. Get character right first. It's a better way to express it. Use it as a gateway if you prefer. If you don't meet the character, you don't get into the second part where we assess competency. So let's just talk about those 3 things. So character, rest in character. And what I'll point you to is there's another series of videos called The Practice of Non-Greedy Business. And there's a video series in there about worthy leadership, and the other language which I use is the achiever trait. Look at those because they go into detail about the importance of the character traits of a leader. In your family business, you want to make sure you get the right leaders. There is a tendency naturally to simply say it has to be a child, and often traditionally used to be an older son. Thankfully, that has sort of washed away a bit depending on the culture and the background. What you really want is the best leadership team, not those who through seniority or position feel it's theirs. You got to be careful about that. I know it's a very sensitive area, and I've stepped on toes before questioning this, but if you're really serious about growth, compounding of wealth across generations, unity, growth, contribution, then you'll be very careful about who you put in there as the leader. If you feel someone is weak as a leader, then starting transition early and giving them the right experience allows you to build them to where they need to be. So remember that. Time helps. Competency. Who has the right competencies to run this business? You look into your strategic business plan. You look to see where the business is going to be in the future, where it's going to go to. Because I'm appointing someone for the future, not for the past. It's not what I needed to do as the past leader. It's what the business needs for the future. Sometimes we turn around and say, where's the mini me? They need to be like me. No. They need to be the person who can meet the future needs of the business wherever it's going to go to. So competency is measured against that. The other aspect, and I'll just mention briefly, but we deal with in the land of legacy, is you're going to have sitting beside that person, that leadership team, if you feel they're a bit young, a bit inexperienced, an advisory board. We'll deal with that in the land of legacy, but an advisory board sitting beside a new leadership team can be vital to success. Compatibility, I think, is pretty much irrelevant. In Australia, we would say, well, compatibility is what football team they barrack for. Nah, it's nothing to do with that. Compatibility is about, do you have the same sense of purpose and values and vision that sit comfortably with me and the family? That's what compatibility is about. If you look at compatibility that way, it lifts up much higher in the percentage than necessary competency. Character, competency, compatibility, these are the aspects which you need to look at for leadership. The other aspect I'll just mention here is, maybe if I drop up, I have a diagram here which I'll just bring, you'll see coming up on the screen now. This is a typical governance structure of family business. We look at this in the land of legacy. But see, there's a separation created. Remember we talked about this, the bottomless pit? Here I have the family council, which is representing the shareholders, the different family groups. And here on the other side, and probably the image is opposite to where my hand's going, here on the other side I have the business. I have the board of directors, I have an advisory board, I have the senior leadership team. I believe when you're thinking about succession and you're thinking at family business which has got a reasonable breadth and depth and a reasonable sized business, you need someone who is a leader for the family and you need someone who is a leader for the business. They are two separate leadership roles. I need someone who has got a business acumen, who can grow and compound the business and the wealth it is generating. I need someone who has a heart for family and will nurture, mentor, coach and grow family members. It could be the same person, but quite often it's not. And an example comes to mind of a family in which the family was struggling over the choice of who would be the next leader of the business. And the struggle they had is, there was a family member who had a heart for the family, another family member who was a money maker. Well, to me the choice becomes quite separate. There's not a single leader, there is a dual leadership responsibility. I think that can work very well. So when you're thinking about family and you're thinking about leadership, think about splitting the roles out between family and business. It can work quite well at times. Okay, what are we up to now? Family charter. So I've mentioned all the way through, this is number 7, the role of the family charter. It can be, I think, one of the most valuable legacies that you can leave. Probably more important than the wealth which you're leaving behind, quite honestly. It can be one of the most valuable legacies because your family charter is saying, let us as a family group talk about how we're going to work together for the good of future generations. So we all prosper, so we all have good health, so we all have great, wonderful, happy lives. So this unity just works us forward and it's a strength. And what's been seeded by the past generations just forms a massive foundation for the goodness of the future generations. It's going to talk about governance structures. It's going to talk about separating family interests and business interests. If we go into a little bit more detail, it's going to talk about the history, the values, the role of wealth, the welfare of family members, who is the family member, what entitlements are there. Then it's going to jump across the other side. It's going to say about employment, remuneration, promotion, personal development, retirement, equity entitlements, transfer of equity, non-compete provisions. You can see it draws everything together, but it starts from that sense of who are we as a family and how do we go forward. It explains family values and traditions which have underpinned the strength of the family and the growth of family wealth. It is a principles and values document. that is designed to unify the family across generations. And as you're preparing it, and again we'll talk about it in the breakout video, you write it up in a very plain, simple language. Don't legalize it. That comes later. You start off by saying, let's talk as a family and answer a whole series of questions and draw that together so we have a unified view of what we're going to do in the future as a family group. Family Charter is a vital document. As I said, separate breakout video in which I'll go through how you actually develop your family charter. And if I was to say anything, the creation of the family charter addresses all those 7 points we have gone through in the land of family and deals with them. The building of family harmony, the development of communication strategy, the establishment of regular meetings, identifying who future leaders might be, can be, will be, talking about the role of individuals in the family, looking at fractures, looking at how we create a unified team and take them forward. The family charter and the process for that allows you to orienteer your way, I'll use that word, through all of that. So family, challenging, time-consuming, vital. It is the foundations, the cornerstone for the preservation and compounding of wealth across generations, and the unity and the goodness and the well-being of your family in future generations. You want to build that as a strong unit which comes together. And this land of family is where you seed, you begin to start this conversation, and it continues through legacy, through wealth, through business, up into decisions where you tie it all together. And it's all focused on the goals which you've built in the land of goals and how you walk that forward. We start with the balance and the focus. What is the whole and how do I bring that together? I talk about individual contribution and a sense, so individual growth and a sense of contribution. Individual parts, my part. We look at fractures, how do we repair them? We think of my partner, my spouse, and the role they play, and that becomes such a significant and valuable assets. I talk about the wealth which we've got and the purpose of that wealth and how it's going to grow. When I think about leadership, I think about character, competency, capability. I think about family leaders and business leaders. Where's that fit? And I use the family charter as the tool, the process for building consensus and then articulating and documenting it. And then much later in the process, we're up in decisions and everything's been settled, then we will legalize it and make sure it becomes binding on family generations in the future. This is the journey in the land of family. It can be challenging. Your independent succession advisor will support you if you've got the right one. Hope you do. And it will be a wonderful journey forward because the whole transition succession process can repair and bring the family together as a strong unit, setting it for the future. So imagine if you're able to turn around and say, I feel good about the future of my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren because this succession process has just bonded everyone together in a way which they are unified. They have direction, they have focus, and they have alignment, and I feel good about the entire thing. This is what the land of family can achieve for you. So just a reminder about the 50th time probably, second breakout video on the development of family chart and the mechanics of doing that. Watch that video, it will be coming up very shortly. I thank you for your time, I thank you for your participation through listening, and I hope this video has been of benefit to you and helps you in your transition, your succession journey. Be well.
Hi everyone, it's Sally here. I work with Richard. You will see coming up on the next 3 slides. Firstly, a URL link if you are interested in purchasing Richard's transition guide, which is a 200-page full-color guide in either spiral-bound printed format or a digital PDF format, or both if you wish. Secondly, a URL link to Richard's library of some 500 articles on family business succession, business strategy, leadership, growth and competitiveness, which you can access freely. And thirdly, there is an email address for any questions you may have. These are great resources, and I commend them to you. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and I hope to see you again soon.